show for all your latest UFC news and rumors. It's Brian Coyle. It's Sean Stanley. It's the TFM Live podcast. And it's now.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to TFM Live, the official podcast of bantamweight.com. I am Brian Coyle, and despite the computers and technology trying to rise against us and stop us from recording Sean Stanley, we have figured out a way to actually talk on a podcast this week. And good thing, because pretty much, everything broke this week. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. We got some cold weather down here. It was in the cool, crisp 60s this week.
Oh, poor you.
Yeah, you know it.
My face looked like Tom Coughlin's after the NFC Championship game a while back. That's how cold it is here in the tri-state area, if you will. It's heating up, though, in the UFC, man. I got to tell you, I don't know why they decided to break a bunch of news this week, but the promotion is pretty much doing that. I mean, there's a lot of places to start. We'll get to the UFC bantamweight division title being on the line this Sunday, not Saturday. It's tricked me a couple times. I'll probably make the mistake. Yeah, in Boston, Massachusetts, at the legendary TD Garden, and I say legendary because that's where the legendary Boston Garden used to be. T.J. Dillashaw and Dominick Cruz, where again we did our 3 reasons why each fighter will win on the fullmountmma.com that you can read literally right now. I believe in the guy that I wrote about. Do you believe in the guy that you wrote about?
I 100% believe in the guy I wrote about because that is the known. Your guy is a lot of unknown.
All right. Well, I see what you're doing there. So it's perfect. I don't know how we end up always getting the guys that we ended up picking in this fight, but that's perfect. So that we'll talk about that. Somebody got popped for a drug test.
Say it ain't so.
Yoel Romero. So he's in a bit of trouble, which could open up possibilities for Chris Weidman, a possible rematch with Lou Rockhold. We've got fighters being fined, and we'll explain why that is. Wanderlei Silva is in the news. Seriously, he's in the news, so we'll talk about that. And the biggest news, obviously, the confirmation of what we saw reports of, and we ourselves had a article on those reports on the fullmountmma.com. Conor McGregor and Rafael dos Anjos are fighting in March at UFC 197. Oh, and their co-main event is Holly Holm and Miesha Tate. Also, like, that card in and of itself is loaded. So we have to break down those matchups. Somewhere Frankie Edgar is yelling out his window that Conor McGregor is a scared chicken, because that's been the idea that they've had. That's kind of been their marketing strategy. Not the best. Probably not Edgar's idea, in my opinion. But so let's just start off with the biggest news of the week. Oh yeah, and CM Punk may have his first opponent. Let's just throw that one in there as well. So plenty to talk about, Sean. Let's start with UFC 197. What are your thoughts? We're getting McGregor, Dos Anjos in March, barring injury, knock on wood. McGregor will move up to 155 pounds at lightweight and challenge Rafael dos Anjos for the lightweight belt. I
mean, my personal opinion in this whole thing is I think it's a mistake. I think it's going, look, if he wins it, you got him with 2 titles in 2 different weight classes, okay? That's best case. Worst case scenario, he gets beat badly by Dos Anjos, and now how do you market him going back to 145, or will he go back to 145? Why not just have him relinquish the belt and then you can get another title out of there? Because if he wins 155, he's obviously probably not going to drop back down to 145 to defend a belt.
It's funny you mentioned that, because we have an article that John Kavanaugh said that he could go up to 170.
Yeah, I heard that article as well. And then also, did you see I was flipping through some of the sites, and I saw one where apparently there was an agreement, and I don't know how. I didn't get to see who the writer was, so it may not be as accurate as one of the more accurate sites, but something about that there was an agreement reached between the fighters Aldo and McGregor before the fight that whoever won would, I guess, relinquish the belt to move up regardless of who won the fight. Did you read that article? Did you see that article?
I saw Jose Aldo, I believe, said that.
Oh, is that well? Okay. There, so they.
I believe, yeah. So I think Jose Aldo, was basically saying that he was going to move up anyway too. I don't think he was going to fight Dos Anjos, which would have been a little weird because considering similar training styles, they're friends with each other's camps.
Yeah.
Not one of those things where they typically go with one another. I'm torn here because on one hand, McGregor Dos Anjos, take my money now. Like, I want to watch that fight. Literally.
Oh no, it's definitely a fight you want to see. I mean, that's a given. I just don't know if they're going to get the payoff that they think they're going to get.
The problem is here. If you're picking that fight today, who is your pick in that fight?
I got to go with Dos Anjos.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree that Dos Anjos should be the favorite. Conor is a big 145. He's a similar sized 155. To me, Conor is a great fighter. But do we know how he's going to react to a weight division that he hasn't fought in the UFC? Plain and simple. And like you mentioned, does it take a little bit of shine off of him if he loses in March? There's the injury risk leading up to UFC 200, and we now know that Ronda Rousey won't be at 200.
Nope.
She won't be there. She asked for more time off. The filming of, I believe, Roadhouse got pushed back a little bit, which I'm completely fine with. I want that sequel, spiritual sequel, remake, whatever you want to call it, to be just as good as the original. I am a big Roadhouse fan. It's a great movie. I mean, not, story-wise or cinematography-wise or, any of the typical movie things, but it's a cult classic, if you will.
Yeah, it definitely is.
God bless Patrick Swayze, man. He's terrific in that. But getting off the rails, Rousey's out. That's your biggest draw, gone. Your second biggest draw, or in vice versa, whatever you want to put it. McGregor could be, depending on if he gets beat, or if he gets beat bad, or he gets injured. No McGregor, no Rousey for UFC 200, which gotta be a nightmare scenario for the UFC. It has to be, right?
No, definitely. I mean, you're going to lose your two big moneymakers aren't going to be there. That's like, you're not having you get to the Super Bowl and not having your quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and you got your whole team out there that's, maybe names and they might put on a good show, but, people pay to see certain names and they're not going to pay if they're not on the card. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they dance around this 200 card, what they do, what little spectacles they make of it just to see what they do with it. Because, I mean, I don't think you want 200 to just be a above average card. You want it to be something, to me, I think you'd want it to be a spectacle. That's UFC 200. And right now it just seems like it's just going to be, there's UFC 200.
And you're exactly right. And there's two ways to go about this. You either make this the greatest card of all time, just fight-wise, and all the true, more than just casual fight fans watch this, and you go to the hardcore market and you say, we got this fight and this fight and this fight, and everyone's just like, wow, okay, these are the greatest matchups of all time. And you put them on that card, or you do the star power. And it's similar, like we said, Dana White could learn a thing or two from Vince McMahon when it comes to promoting. John Cena is hurt out of WrestleMania. Yep. WWE is losing stars left and right due to injury.
Randy Orton's out. Daniel Bryan's out. You look at the line of Seth Rollins. I mean, you name it, everybody is on the shelf right now.
And you're talking about they're going to Cowboy Stadium, a place the UFC wishes to bring a show to at one point. And this is supposed to be the biggest WrestleMania ever. Well, you're missing the biggest stars ever. And they haven't sold out that place pre-ordered. They're not going to sell out Cowboy Stadium because all the stars are gone. I mean, it still could end up being a terrific show, and they could go in the direction, well, we know we're not going to break the attendance record. Let's just put on the best wrestling show as possible. The UFC can do, let's put on the best mixed martial arts show of all time. Let's put John Jones, which I believe John Jones is fighting on that card now. The way this is setting up, that's his return fight. Because I don't think, even if you do go to the Garden in April, which it's getting kind of a little push. Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York put it in his budget, money for that kind of thing. So that could get some traction. That could happen this year. And if you go to the Garden, you have to have a big fight. And it's Jones' fight. Will that be the return fight? Will this alter their plans and they'll have Cormier and Jones in UFC 200 instead? So a lot of mixed. It's a mixed bag here. I love the matchup though. From a pure fight standpoint, this is awesome. This is freaking sick. McGregor and Dos Anjos. It's got to be a fun fight. And I mean, McGregor is already taking. He's trying to get the Brazilian people on his side by calling Dos Anjos a traitor. And he said he would behead him. Obviously, literally, McGregor likes to use these warrior-like terms.
Yeah.
And these
Irish.
I mean, being Irish, I don't use these terms on a daily basis where I work. So it's not. You
don't say I'm going to behead you.
No, I'm it's not in my vernacular.
Man, you're slipping. You're slipping. You're not Irish.
It's very barbarian-like, and that's half of the appeal to him. So we'll see. I mean, if he stays healthy, you get Edgar McGregor, which is, to me, the bigger fight. But this is going to be great too. And hell, McGregor wins. You're looking at a all-time great because guy's holding two belts at the same time.
Yeah, two different weight classes.
He's going to go bounce up and down. Wants the 170 belt if he wins. Like, this is.
But I guess here's my question though with everything, and I can't remember who said it, and I want to say I believe it was Aldo actually again said it, that McGregor's getting too much power. He's telling them, I want to do this, and he's getting it. I want to do this, and he's getting it. And he's like, what other fighter is that happening with? And you look at it, and
Ronda Rousey.
I mean, that's probably it. And then, but is it? I mean, at what point will UFC be able to say no to Conor McGregor?
When he loses.
But then, what does he value? What value does he have then once he loses?
He's got a ton of value once he loses.
No, if he loses, say he loses to 155, then he drops down to 145, and Edgar beats him again. That's two losses in a row. You can't. I mean, you could still have a good fighter. Don't get me wrong, but you can't have him at the elevation he is now if he loses two straight.
If he loses two straight, he gets Edgar again in a rematch. And if he loses three straight, he goes away for a while. And everyone loves a good return. It's there. Like, the market's there. But the whole the whole crux of the issue is whether it's in the best interest of the UFC.
Mm-hmm. Which obviously they think it is, or they wouldn't be doing it. I mean, I'm guessing that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, that's the way to look. That's the way to look at it. We'll talk more about this fight as it gets closer. Obviously, in March. Like, holy crap! It's just less than 2 months away.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was about to say. It's not too far away.
Kind of nuts. Holly Holm will fight Miesha Tate on that card. Another situation where Miesha Tate wins. UFC's not worst nightmare, but I mean, you lose the shine on Holly Holm essentially.
I don't think any of these are like worst case scenarios for UFC, but they're definitely going to have to look at from a marketing standpoint, if Tate wins and if Dos Anjos wins, I would say wins like a landslide type battle. Like he just totally walks in and demolishes them in less than a minute. But I mean, if it's a competitive fight and it's a decision or whatever, I don't think there's a problem. And again, when I say an issue with, I don't think that they're going to lose steam UFC as a company. But again, you've put kind of your eggs in these baskets, and how many times can these baskets fall and the eggs crack before you have no more eggs?
It's a weird spot to be in, and we'll see. I mean, they're putting their trust in their biggest fighters. So go out and deliver. No, it's
yeah. No, I mean, you have to do that. Yeah, you have to do that. I mean, it's not like you can sit there and say, okay, Miesha Tate, you take on Nunes. Nunes, the winner, will take on, and then just keep dragging it out. There's got to be a fight. Rousey right now does not want to fight, or she's not ready to fight. One of the two.
Could be a little bit of both.
I mean, you can't sit there. Yeah, you can't sit there and just say, okay, Holly Holm, you have to sit and wait till Rousey's ready. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and we'll see Ronda Rousey on Saturday Night Live next weekend. So, like,
look at that.
These are I don't know when Rousey's coming back, and I'm not saying she's never going to fight again, because that's not going to. She has too much pride, and she wants to come back bigger and better than ever. Wants to make sure she's ready this time around, because obviously something got knocked loose, and I'm not talking about her jaw in that fight. It's like, oh my God, I have to get this thing.
Well, isn't it kind of like, and I don't mean to say this the way it's gonna, but like I don't know. I mean, like when you watch these movies and stuff, and there's always like the bully picking on the little kid or something, and that little kid finally fights back and knocks the bully down, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm not the big dog in this yard like I thought I was. And I think, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but I think some of that got like, whoa, wait a minute. I was outclassing everybody else the way Holly Holm outclassed me.
It's Apollo Creed in the first Rocky movie, but reversed the results from Rocky 1 and Rocky 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Rousey is terrific. She's a terrific fighter. She's a fun actor. She's a fun personality. That's great. She's gonna be able to do that. She's gonna be in wrestling. She's gonna do all this great stuff. But if she wants to come back and beat Holly Holm, she needs to come back ready to go. She can't just rush into this fight. So I'm not surprised by it. I think it's a smart move, as long as she's doing this for those reasons, and not just like, no, I want to film my movie and then I'll go and do it. Like, it's like, I need time. I need to figure out. I want to do all my movie stuff, get it done. All right, now I'm going to be in camp for 3 months, and then bang, we're going to fight. That I can see.
Yeah, you got to be dedicated in the fight game, especially with the way, she's got to be mentally prepared to come back and do this, because it can't just be something, like you said, rushed into. It's got to be, okay, this is it. I'm ready. I'm focused. And, this is what I need out of my camp. And that's another thing that I think she needs to look at, is that camp, man. I mean, there's got to be changes, man. There's got to be something done. You cannot tell me that camp, we've talked about it on this many times. One, they tell her to stay in front of the boxer. Two, they told her, hey, great round, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, if you can't tell your fighter, I understand there's times where you got to be like, you got to tell your fighter certain things or whatever, but to sit there and say, oh, that was a great round, when you just saw her get, beat pretty badly, I don't see it. And there's got to be something done with the fight. Either you sit them down and say, hey, look, I can take the truth or whatever. Give me the truth. Don't just sit there and sugarcoat it or whatever, because I'm your money or whatever you want to call it. She's got to figure something out there too.
She has to have the Chris Weidman mentality. Like Weidman said on the MMA Hour, I think with Ariel Helwani, that the best thing that could have happened to him was losing, because if he had ended up winning that fight, he wouldn't have trained as hard. Wouldn't have trained as hard for the next fight. He knows that he has to get better. He knows that he can't just skate by. and do the minimum in his mind amount of training and still be champion. Because this is every division, the talent pool is getting deeper in the UFC. That's what this whole thing comes down to. All the title changes, all the movement between these fighters up and down the ranks. The reason why? More people. This is UFC mixed martial arts is a newer sport. People forget about that all the time. There's not a big history to it. There's more and more people. There are kids now growing up doing mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
And just mixed martial arts.
Yeah, it's not no longer like karate, no longer it's mixed martial arts now. If you look around, it's mixed martial arts studios. There's still your karate studios, there's still your jiu-jitsu studios, but most of them are mixed martial arts studios now. You're learning everything now. It used to be back in the days, it was kind of like a tough man contest, but then you got your karate disciplines in there, and then they started winning them, your jiu-jitsu disciplines, and they started being able to outclass some of these fighters, quote unquote fighters, and you saw that. But now when you look at the sport from where it is now, I laugh because I have a DVD, it's like best of knockouts from UFC 1 up, and when you look at what was in that cage for those fights compared to what's in the cage, these athletes these days, it just makes you sit back and marvel.
It's a stunning sport in every which way. You get these people from all these walks of life, all these different disciplines. I mean, when Lyoto Machida came in and made karate an effective martial art in the UFC, it was incredible. Lyoto Machida is now getting older. He fought Yoel Romero, a wrestler with now a bunch of who changed to mixed martial arts. And with these different disciplines, you get these clash of styles. You get these tremendous fights. You were in the crowd for that fight. And you see how things change so quickly, and you have to be so well-rounded. You have to be able to do. There's the days of people just being a brawler or just being a grappler. They're slowly going away. I mean, you got
to evolve with the sport. I mean, the sport is evolving. You have to evolve with it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the champ. You look at Luke Rockhold, the way he fought. So many different little things. You look at Fabricio Verdum. He's a heavyweight who's a submission specialist. Like, these guys have such great skill sets, and you have to evolve and learn. And that's what, Ronda Rousey's going to have to do that. She's going to have to either learn how to have a better brawling game, or she's going to have to shore up some weaknesses on the other side. McGregor's going to have to be careful if he ever fights another wrestler. Like, and it's great for the sport. And that's why we have so much changeover. And then you get people, if I could transition perfectly into this, like CM Punk, who's got no athletic background whatsoever, but has spent the past year with Duke Rufus and has become a mixed martial artist. And we'll see him at UFC 200, as was said by Dana White on Off the Record with Michael Landsberg a couple days ago by the time you're listening to this. And his opponent will be Mickey Gall, the New Jersey kid who was on the first episode of Looking for a Fight, which is Dana White's new series that you can find on YouTube. Gall is 1-0. This is what the UFC wanted, somebody pretty green with a decent personality. And Mickey Gall was this kid who was out fighting on an a Philly card, and he called out CM Punk after a decisive submission win. And Gall will get the opportunity to fight Punk if he beats Michael Jackson, a prospect who's 0-0. I can make a whole bunch of bad puns, but I'm not going to with that name. There's plenty on Twitter. Trust me, it's so good. Gall beats Jackson, he gets Punk at 200. If not, then they got to find somebody else. So when I heard this, it makes complete sense to me. My question is, who's Punk's second opponent? Because if Punk doesn't beat Mickey Gall, that's not good.
Well, my question is Punk ready to fight Gall? What have we heard?
He has to be.
Out of the Punk camp. I mean, we haven't heard anything from CM Punk in a while, have we? After the injury?
That's certainly by design.
No, more than likely, yeah. But, I mean, obviously he'll be ready by maybe that's another, the undercard, the Fight Pass card of UFC 200.
No, he's too big to be on Fight Pass. And I say that, and then
that's true.
He's the opening fight. That's what Punk is.
Yeah. He's that attraction.
Absolutely. But Showtime Pettis, Ben Askren. These are the name one champion, Ben Askren, who come out of Rufus Sports. So this is not no little gym, all right? This is one of the best places around. And if they took in Punk and they've been training him, and if Punk goes out there and if the bright lights hit him and he forgets everything, we'll find out. If the bright lights hit him and he becomes this animal, and he becomes this guy who takes care of business, then all right, we got something. Now fight in 2 months, and then fight in 3 months after. Like this, that's the key to Punk's success. He has to put together what he's learned and stay healthy, because he's old. He's 37. He's old. Period. And you got to get it together.
Yeah. And you got to remember this too. His body has taken a beating. He's been wrestling since he was like 19, 20 years old. And you can say what you want to say about pro wrestling, but I've had separated shoulders. I've had dislocated knees. I've had it all, and you know it's those injuries, they pile up, man. And like I've watched, you know, MMA for a while now, and I always joke around when I was watching my dad. I said, I think if I got kicked that hard in the thigh, I would just tell him, hey, look, you want this fight more than me.
Yeah.
The way some of these guys kick, I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and take that.
And
you know what I mean?
You look at these other sports. I played football for 12 years, basically my whole developing life, from age 4 to 16, playing tackle football. I was lucky to come away with one broken hand, and that was pretty much it. I never, knowingly at least, sustained a concussion. That's up to our listeners to figure that one out. But you look at guys in the sports. Some guys go years and stay healthy. And then you look at other guys like Dominick Cruz, who's fighting this Sunday, got through 3 ACLs and a groin tear in 4 years. So it's a game of chance. It's a game of luck. But you got to be smart. And if Punk's never been in this situation before, will he do something? Will he push his body past a limit that he doesn't know yet? Does he know how to protect himself? Does he know how to? I can't wait. It's a spectacle in a good way to me. Like when you look at Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock, it's too old.
Yeah, not only that too, but how is he going to come into this fight amped up? I mean, it's one thing to walk into a crowd at a wrestling show and be amped up, and then another thing to go into a UFC octagon and have to control your emotions and be able to
think,
you know, play a game of chess inside that octagon as well, when you've never done this before.
I mean, it's different. It's completely different. And he's got to be able, he has to, and he just has reflexes that will kick in from being in wrestling that you never know. Like he talked about it. He said he talked to Brock Lesnar about it. And like there are times like, oh wait, you're waiting for him to come down so you can do a flying knee, but like as stupid as that sounds, that could happen. Like it could happen, just reflex. Like, oh yeah, this guy's coming down. All right, I'm gonna catch him. Like it's the way it is. So I'm excited for Punk's debut.
Yeah, especially when you've done it for half your life and that's all you know, and now you're trying to switch into this. It's two different ballgames. And I know, I mean, not saying that Punk thought he was going to come in and fight right away, but I think some people thought the UFC was just going to throw him in there, and I'm glad they didn't, because it's two different things. And you got to remember one thing with Brock Lesnar. Yeah, they threw him in there, but he was a national collegiate wrestler. It wasn't like you got CM Punk is coming in. He's done some like rolling around to stay in shape at the Royce Gracie gyms and things like that, but he's done nothing as far as MMA background. So he's coming in with nothing. There are two big different, circumstances for these two guys.
Yeah, and when you look at all of this, Brock Lesnar was the next big thing coming out of college when he signed with WWE, and when he tried to play for the Vikings and that didn't work, and he was this monster in the UFC. And I mean, I still think if he had been healthy and not gotten diverticulitis, he could still be a heavyweight contender or champion. in the UFC because he's just that gigantic. And remember, Lesnar lost his first fight to Frank Mir because he got caught. Mm-hmm. But he showed like, holy crap, this guy is a war monster.
No, when he bum rushed him, I mean, the whole place where I was watching at a quarter deck, and the whole place went crazy. And you know, it was like, oh, yeah. And then when he got beat, they're like, oh, well, he just got caught. He just, you know, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, oh, this is not. It almost seemed like everybody was making an excuse for him.
Yeah, and then he goes out and wins the next time around, and then knocks out Tim Sylvia, and like, this is the way it goes. But we have, like you just said, if that reaction comes out and people have that reaction and Punk goes out and looks amazing and wins, I don't think he can lose. I really don't think so. Like I don't think he can have that Lesnar like approach.
I think he may be able to if he gets caught with something. Like if he's dominating and you see him make that, okay, he's a rookie mistake. I think you can live with that. But I think if he goes out and he gets dominated, I don't think you can. I don't think. I'm not gonna say you can't, but I don't know where he goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that, and I think the UFC is going to tell whoever fights him, it's going to be like, you can become a superstar if you beat CM Punk, if you knock out CM Punk, if you make it look great, if you just push him against the cage for 3 rounds and ruin his debut, then it's nobody wins. Because then you'll get thrown to the side, and the Punk's debut will be all for naught. Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the perfect world, Punk comes out, knocks whoever he fights out, gets on the mic, and does what he does best, and calls out somebody higher up. And we'll get there, and we'll move on from there. And then 4 fights in, if he keeps winning, he can get some ranked guys and see where he goes. So it'll be fun. I'm excited. More excited.
I'm excited, but the problem is he's going to have to be on a rocket launcher to success.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a lot of time.
Yeah, he does not. He definitely does not. Something else I want to talk about in regards to, we kind of skipped over it earlier. Rafael dos Anjos was fined $10,000 for wearing an Evolve MMA shirt at a UFC on Fox 17 weigh-in. It's a violation of the Reebok agreement where you can only wear Reebok stuff in weigh-ins, interviews, all that kind of jazz in the week leading up to it. But this is starting to get a big deal. Donald Cowboy Cerrone was fined for stitching a small piece of the American flag inside of his fight shorts.
Nate Diaz was fined for wearing jeans to weigh in.
And Cerrone made $30,000 and Dos Anjos made $40,000 per the UFC's outfitting agreement with Reebok for the fight. So you're finding guys a lot of money, significant amounts of what they get from the sponsor for disobeying. And this is going to become an issue. The Reebok agreement, obviously, we know is terrible. It's awful for fighters. I have not seen one fighter come out in support of it.
No. How can you, though, honestly? I mean, when you look at what some of these guys were making on sponsors, and now you're telling me they're getting $30,000 because they've had over 7 professional fights or whatever the criteria is now. They get more of the championship matches. You're telling me these guys wouldn't be making 10 times that on some of these fights?
And then the other thing was now it tells more people to go for fight of the night. And Greg Jackson and Mike Winklejohn came out and were talking about, we don't want our fighters to win fight of the night. If you win fight of the night, that means more brain damage. So you're looking at this is a big deal. And it's not like you're fine. NFL players get fined $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 for unnecessary roughness hits for uniform violations.
Yeah, but they're also making $183,000 per game.
That's
if not more.
You took the words right out of my mouth. This is going to become a problem. Cerrone says he's not going to stop doing it. Diaz is not going to stop doing it. You look at these guys.
No, yeah. He said, did you check my jeans? They are Reebok jeans. That's the greatest line ever.
Yeah, he's full of them. It's a draconian way to treat your fighters, and it's going to become an issue because they have to revamp this deal. It's a 6-year deal, I think.
I mean, let me ask you a question, though. Just because with this stuff going on now, Did you ever think that you would look at free agency in MMA? Did you ever think anybody would be okay to leave the UFC and go to Bellator or any of these other fighting federations? Until this Reebok thing happened, I thought it's unheard of to me. And now they're doing that.
Aljamain Sterling, perfect example, undefeated bantamweight. Sterling is a fantastic fighter, but he left the UFC. He left the UFC because he wants to see what's out there in free agency, and he can probably make more money elsewhere.
Yeah, because did not correct Bellator. You still get sponsors for, right?
Yeah, you can do all.
So
this
you might
stuff.
not make much from Bellator fight, but you can make money in sponsorships. And if UFC's not getting any of that sponsorship money, imagine how much sponsorship you could get if you fought in Bellator. You could be raking in a lot more money than what these guys are making from this Reebok deal.
And from the misspelling of the fight kits, and Jeremy Botter of Bleacher Report put it bluntly, no other fight kits really sell besides McGregor and Rousey. Just that's kind of the way it is on the Reebok site.
Yeah. Wait, aren't most of them the same? I mean,
yeah.
All of them are pretty much the same, other than the champions, right?
There's been no creativity. There's been no nothing. Reebok is. Oh, thank God I didn't curse this there, but know what I was gonna say. We
would have beeped it. We could beep it.
I try to keep it family friendly, but they have screwed the pooch from the onset with this.
Yeah.
And there's more blunt terms that fighters have used that people should use to describe what happened here, because they got screwed over.
Yeah, and they did. A lot of them.
I bet you Dana White and the UFC is regretting the way this kind of all went down too, because it's not been great for relationships with the fighters. I mean, it just can't. It just hasn't. And they're gonna have to figure this out. So watch this, because they said Reebok had said the promotion has warned at least 12 fighters about doing this kind of thing. And some guys are doing it by accident. Some guys are doing it on purpose. And frankly, the Reebok gear that's probably being provided, not the greatest in the world. Not the most creative, not the best for the sport. So they're gonna have to they in a perfect world, they'll revamp the way they're doing it and either change some aspects of it, give them better clothes, give them more.
I almost think what they should do is find color schemes for these guys and make the fighters kind of let's see what their color schemes is they like, and make it have some kind of personality.
Customizable kits is the easiest thing in the whole world. Half of the reason why people loved watching fighters was, what's he gonna wear to the weigh-in? What's he gonna do? When you look at all these different boxers, he's in the black and gold, he's in the red, white, and blue, he's wearing the Mexican flag on his trunks.
Well, when they did the thing with Conor McGregor, when they were doing the was it against Aldo when he came out in the Irish colors?
Oh yeah.
Because they didn't want both of them coming out in the black because of both of them being the quote-unquote champions at the time. One was interim, one was the champion. So because of that, they gave him a choice of the things, because Aldo was coming out in the champion black. So they switched it up and let him come out in the Irish colors.
Which is great. It was awesome.
Yeah, they should do it more often. Let people – I mean, what is the problem with that?
Because the people at Reebok don't know what they're doing. It's plain – they don't know MMA.
You got, what is it, the All-American Chris Weidman, and he comes out, and that's the easiest thing to do, man. It's
amazing. It's so much red tape, and they don't, spelling names wrong. Anderson the Spider, Aldo kits, what in the world are they doing? So watch as that develops and see if there's any changes, because it's the worst. The UFC is expanding at such great lengths all over the place. You could get a fight in Madison Square Garden this year. The fighters' personalities have never been bigger. Get it. The UFC video game looks great. They've been promoting the hell out of that. Get it together. This is where your fighters look. I get you want to make them look more uniform on television so it looks more professional. I get that. There's a reason why all 32 teams in the NFL look different. There's a reason why all 30 teams in the NBA in Major League Baseball and hockey look different.
Unless they're on a Thursday night game looking like ketchup and mustard.
Hey, I didn't mind the Color Rush uniforms. Well, problem being, I'm not colorblind, so I could see.
Yeah, no, I could see too. But
the ketchup and mustard ones were bad. The Jets and the Bills wasn't too bad. Jaguars and Titans.
Like that is perfect for Christmas.
Jaguars and Titans is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So I have no clean segue for this one. USADA informed the UFC of a potential anti-doping violation for Yoel Romero, which sucks. It blows.
Bum, bum, bum.
You've watched Yoel Romero fight in person. We saw him last at UFC 194 when he won a controversial decision, and a controversial by me saying that Jacare should have won the fight probably. But Romero was cited by USADA for the potential violation of his anti-doping policy. According to the UFC, on Tuesday, sample was taken out of competition, according to a statement released by the UFC. The exact details of the violation are unknown. We're guessing. You never want to speculate, but it's probably not what Nick Diaz was popped for out of competition. that would be what I would think.
That may probably be right.
Yoel Romero does look like a human tank. That's the way I like to put him in an obvious the way the guy who is 38 and he doesn't look 38. And again, don't want to speculate here, but Romero on the brink of a title shot gets popped out of competition for a drug test violation. This completely impacts the middleweight title picture. And that Jacare Chris Weidman fight that we all thought would happen with Romero taking on Rockhold probably goes out the window, which sucks because I think that would be an amazing fight. And we're looking at possibly a Chris Weidman rematch against Luke Rockhold, which to me, I'd like to see Weidman fight Jacare just for my own personal reasons because I think that'd be a fantastic fight.
Well, I was going to ask, you don't think they'd slide Sosa in there just to give him? I mean, that fight wasn't like Romero dominated that fight. I mean, he could slide in and get a shot as well.
That's what Sousa's coach said. Jacare deserves a title shot. And there is Vitor Belfort, who Luke Rockhold wants to basically kick his head off of a silver platter. So you have that as well. So there's options. I think they go the rematch route. That's just me. Or they could wait. Anderson Silva, Michael Bisping. Remember that? That's happening on Fight Pass in London in February. After that fight, Anderson Silva wins. You put Anderson Silva against Chris Weidman for the third time around. You put Anderson Silva against Jacare Souza. I'm down. So
you put Rockhold Souza and Weidman Silva on the same card, and then the winners battle each other the next.
The only argument against that, of course, is Weidman's beaten Silva twice already. But the second time around, of course, he broke his leg. So it's and then Michael Bisping beats Anderson Silva. We got a whole other ball game too.
Yep.
Because that's that Michael Bisping against Luke Rockhold will be fun. Weidman Bisping. There's a whole bunch of options, pretty much, with Romero out, and we don't know how long he'll be suspended for. But the USADA testing is working for sure. We're getting guys. I mean, Mirko Krokop his sample came back clean, but when USADA tested him, but he confessed to using HGH, and he's retired. So the drug testing is working, which is great for the sport. It's just now they have to figure out what substances shouldn't really bother, like what substances should be banned, what shouldn't be banned, and how John Jones testing for cocaine after a fight, and Nick Diaz testing positive for marijuana before a fight, and Jones really gets no punishment, and Diaz is suspended for 5 years, and now Diaz
which has been knocked down to 18 months now.
Which means he's eligible, I think, in August to fight, which is great for Nate Diaz. But the USADA testing is working. Again, we said a lot of things are working well for the UFC. This, certainly one of them. Another great thing for the UFC, they don't have to deal with Wanderlei Silva saying that the UFC was fixing fights. He apologized, said he was wrong. The UFC released him from his contract today as well, so we'll probably see him in Rizin. Maybe he'll fight Fedor Emelianenko. So that could happen, Sean. So brace yourself for that one.
Or maybe he'll take on King Mo.
That's the fight I would love to see. King Mo against either man.
Or Kimbo Slice or Dada 5000.
Dada 5000. Such a great name. Don't know about him fighting. Watch Dogfight. Terrific movie. Don't know about him fighting though. So we'll see how that goes. Silva said, "I hereby retract such statements in their entirety, as I failed to understand that the term fight fixing specifically refers to the illegal action or practice of dishonesty, determining the outcome of a contest before it occurs." End quote.
Wait. So he's saying he didn't realize what he said?
That's his lawyer writing that for him, yes. He's walking back on it. And remember, the Fertittas also own casinos. And when it comes to fixing things, when it comes to gambling, they would like for this to go away as soon as possible. Because obviously Wanderlei Silva out of his mind when it comes to these claims, and with no legitimate truth to them whatsoever. But it's just, he's gone now. The problem is over. So he also said, "I understand the UFC's reputation will be harmed if my fans and others actually believe the UFC engaged in fight fixing. I have no evidence to support such a claim. I apologize for any misunderstanding my comments may have caused." So he was also sued by Zuffa, the UFC's parent company. So Silva now can go off and do whatever he wants. He's currently under a lifetime ban by the Nevada Athletic Commission for evading a drug test, by the way.
Yeah, him and his lawyers were pretty upset the other day. I watched in a SC
live stream
live stream, and it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, that commission does a interesting job at handling it.
Yeah, they just kind of passed over it, and then they tried to say something, and they wouldn't have none of it. So it's pretty funny. Great.
We covered a lot on today's show. Let's close it out with a bang, because we've got fights this weekend. On Sunday.
What?
Yeah. Not just a bunch of news. There's fights. And it's great. Because T.J. Dillashaw and Dominick Cruz, you could call it a unification bout if you really wanted to. It's technically not, because the Dominick Cruz, of course, was stripped of his title.
I was going to say, I call it trying to regain a title he never lost.
He's not regifting the title. He's trying to regain the title, which is good. There was also the BJ Penn, Nick Lentz thing that you can look up. But I can't say anything that Nick Lentz said in his letter to BJ Penn after he called him out, and BJ Penn wants to fight in March. Which, BJ, come on, you good? You don't need to do anything else. So, on to the most important thing of the week. Dominick Cruz, TJ Dillashaw. Sean, who you got?
Dillashaw.
Why?
Because I know what he's going to bring to this fight. He's won the 3 title defenses. He's beaten Renan Brown twice. And you're kind of guy that's fought once in the last 4 years on the other side. And I understand that man is Dominick Cruz. But what Dominick Cruz are we going to get? It's different being in the training than it is going to be stepping in and fighting a competitor like Dillashaw. That is why I'm going with Dillashaw.
Okay, it's great arguments. If you want to figure out who to place a friendly wager on, who to actually wager on, if you want to know more about this fight, you can head over to the fullmountmma.com, where Sean and I have written opposing viewpoints. Not by design. It's just we just happen to fall into the camps of which the guys that we pick. And I did some heavy breakdown of this, and Again, always got to give the UFC credit for their embedded series. It's absolutely phenomenal. Pretty much every pay-per-view, or fight night, which is great. That they're not really taking weeks off, so to speak. And it's a comprehensive breakdown of all of Dominick Cruz's past injuries, where he's come from, T.J. Dillashaw, the team alpha male stuff going on, which he could be too distracted with his title defense because of the current rift, I'll use that word to describe, between T.J. Dillashaw and Uriah Faber leading up to this fight. Because remember, Dillashaw was kicked out of Team Alpha Male, now works with Elevation Fight Team and Dwayne Bang Ludwig up in Denver, Colorado. It's Joseph Benavidez, Lance Palmer. They traveled to Colorado to help Dillashaw train for Cruz. No Faber, of course. And it's a weird sort of situation that Dominick Cruz, who has thrived. I mean, I love listening to Cruz on UFC Tonight and on the UFC on Fox. He's a terrific analyst. Yes, he is. They've done a great job, period, at getting out. Cormier's great. Bisping's great. It's one of those shows. You see a lot of talking heads sports shows. You can see a lot of people just on sports media saying their opinions, breaking down stuff, and you get it from every different sport. And there are personalities that suck, and there are personalities that are great. They've hit pretty well on all these guys. Kenny Florian, Cormier, all the Cruz. Tyron Woodley was pretty good in his first time up when it came to the welterweights too, as well. So Cruz has spent the past couple years, essentially, with the UFC on Fox, calling these fights and breaking down these fights and analyzing these fights. And he sharpened his tongue. And he sharpened his mind. And he's gone after T.J. Dillashaw. To put it bluntly, when it comes to this fight. And you have to watch the sit-down interview that John Anik had with Dillashaw and Cruz, where it's just like, there is one guy who is clearly a master manipulator, and the other guy is trying to fight back, is either too distracted or just can't hang, period, when it comes to talking. And Dillashaw just is kind of like, I want to fight. But you're the champion. A lot of things come with being the champion. Ronda Rousey foreshadowed her own undoing when she said that before UFC 193. Dillashaw is kind of a clone of Dominick Cruz. He fights, he does that he does the fancy footwork. He's fast, he's quick, he's powerful. And the reasons why I think Dominick Cruz, I think this fight is like needle close. Like, I'm not picking Cruz because I think, oh yeah, he's going to easily beat Dillashaw. No shot. This is a coin flip kind of fight. And the safer pick, obviously, being Dillashaw, because we know he destroyed Renan Barão, who.
Oh, so you're saying I took the safer route? Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Who and Barão, of course, probably in that last fight was overmatched and overpowered, and clearly needs to move up weight. But Cruz is 20-1, Dillashaw 13-2. Dillashaw became the top fighter in the 135-pound division, like you mentioned, beating Renan Barão twice and Joe Soto in between. This is his toughest test, period, in Dominick Cruz.
But let me ask you something. I mean, if he comes back to Cruz that he was,
oh man,
yes. But how do we know that's what's coming back? That's my biggest problem with this whole fight and trying to analyze it, is that, I mean, you could sit in training all day and he can look like the old Dominick Cruz, and his trainers can tell us, oh, he's back. Until he steps in that octagon and shows me he's back, there's no way that I can believe after, 3 ACLs, one on each knee, and everything else that he's gone through, that movement may not be the same. I know it's been 4 years, and I know, things can happen, but I mean, there's so many unknowns, and I know what you're saying, but how do we know that that's the Dominick Cruz that's coming back?
We don't. I completely agree with you. We don't. My 3 keys. The first one, reverse the ring rust. Like, Cruz has to go in there and quickly get himself acclimated to the situation again. Like you mentioned, he's had ACL surgery on both knees. The first surgery didn't take, remember, when they used a cadaver ACL, and he had to get another one. And he tore his groin as well. So you're looking at, I mean, the thing I take heart in, what he did against Takeya Mizugaki, he looked like Dominick Cruz in 2014. He looked outstanding. And from everything I've heard coming out of that camp, is he looks great and he feels confident. He's on a 10-fight winning streak. Like, these are all things that Cruz. I mean, everyone talks about WEC. He was the man in WEC. I mean, with the exception of his one loss to Uriah Faber, which he avenged in the UFC, Cruz was the dude, and he had everything. And he's kind of become this fighter who he realized he had it all. He lost it all due to injury. This guy was losing sponsors left and right because he couldn't fight. Yeah. And I think that mental toughness is going to really come into play with Dillashaw, with all this stuff, like this storm surrounding him. And Cruz is kind of picking away at that scab, and it's smart. He's been delivering tactical barbs left and right. And when they go at high speeds in the octagon, we'll see them moving in real time, like going outstandingly fast. But like you mentioned before, it's a chess match. Like we mentioned with CM Punk, it's a chess match back and forth. I'd take Cruz in that regard. Cruz is the guy who invented this weird little dodgy movement, this kind of stuff where it doesn't make sense. Why is he bouncing that way? Is he coming down this way? Is he coming down that way? Is he moving left or right? Every single move he makes, step he takes, feints back and forth, there's meaning to it in his head. But when you watch it, it's like, what? Why is he doing that? And if Dillashaw gets kind of confused and gets frazzled by all this, I think Cruz has got the absolute advantage. He's got some filthy hooks. I mean, his conditioning is outstanding. He's gone to, I mean, they call him the Dominator, but opponents call him the Decisionator because he takes his fights 5 rounds. I don't find a problem with that as long as he's winning. So, but like you said, the biggest thing here, what Dominick Cruz do we get? And if we get the guy who's the world extreme cage fighting champion, this fight will be over. I think it will be a stoppage, and I think Cruz will win because there's too much stuff surrounding Dillashaw. It's not good. It's disheartening. Because he's already looking at Uriah Faber. It's just the way it goes. What do you think?
Can't that feed as a positive that if he knows if he wants to fight Faber, he's got to get through Cruz?
Yes and no, because when you look at that, when you have that kind of mentality, it's like, oh, I really got to win this, and you put too much pressure on yourself. Dillashaw's type of fighter, like there wasn't a lot of stuff surrounding Dillashaw at the UFC Fight Night Chicago. Like it's like, wow, T.J. Dillashaw is an amazing fighter, which he is. Now it's like, wow, is Dillashaw going to be able to put this Uriah Faber stuff behind him? And this is his first test of adversity in the UFC. So we got to see if he responds. And for Cruz, it's mental adversity as well because he has to trust himself and trust his body to do it. It's a fascinating fight. I love the way it's going. And Faber probably gets the next title shot. Rafael dos Anjos, remember him? He's kind of like, the third-ranked guy in this division. He's sitting back and watching this fight. So when he eventually gets healthy, he'll fight one of these guys. It's a turning point in this division. Probably the most important fight in its history, going back to Cruz Faber. So I'm excited. I'm jacked.
I can't wait to see the fight.
And remember, folks, free fight, Fox Sports 1, 8 o'clock Sunday night. So when the football game's over, when the Pittsburgh,
don't forget Sunday night. Sunday night.
Did I say it wrong? Did I finally mess up?
No. You said it right. I'm trying to program myself.
Oh, good.
Because even when I was writing the article, I was putting Saturday night, and I was like, oh, wait a minute.
So Saturday, when you sit down and you watch the Arizona Cardinals and New England Patriots winning their games, and then you watch the Carolina Panthers dispatch the Seattle Seahawks Sunday at 1 o'clock, and you watch the Pittsburgh Steelers upset the Denver Broncos after Peyton Manning throws 3 picks.
Well, you better hope Ben Roethlisberger's in there then and not Landry Jones.
I think Ben Roethlisberger's going to be okay. I mean, he's got you get some stuff shot into that
He's
thing.
gotten more injuries than Dominick Cruz.
Yeah, he does. But you know the thing with Ben Roethlisberger is he loves to play hero, my friend. How many times have we seen Ben hurt and come back to win the game? I think Ben's going to be all right.
When you got a receiver saying he could only throw 5-yard outs, how are you going to – yeah, I would defense for that.
Lower expectations. Remember, last week's punchline, you'll see this week's punchline either Friday or Saturday this week, depending on the time I have to put it up. I picked Pittsburgh over Carolina in the Super Bowl, and I'm sticking to it. And I grew up hating the Steelers and despising the Steelers. I grew up a Jets and then Bengals fan through many machinations in the NFL system, and we'll see how it goes. So if you watch, if the Steelers, regardless of who wins, but after the Steelers beat the Broncos, tune in to Fox Sports 1. You got T.J. Dillashaw, you got Dominick Cruz, you got a fight that we haven't even mentioned that I have a feeling that we'll see something from you about pretty soon. Anthony Showtime Pettis and Eddie Alvarez are fighting on this card. Pretty awesome. Just saying, yeah. Pretty awesome fight. Travis Brown, who a member of the Glendale Boxing Club. So,
Mr. Rousey, right?
That's another way to put it.
Sorry, my fault.
No. I mean,
too soon.
No, it's not. It's not too soon. It's out there. So we'll see how he responds against Matt Mitrione, a fighter he should beat.
Wow, Mitrione, I can't believe he's still around. Wow.
Well, I mean, again, that's also another way to put Matt Mitrione. And then Ross Pearson.
You talk about somebody that hangs on through all the cuts.
Yeah. Ross Pearson and Francisco Trinidaldo.
Pearson, I want to watch him. I like him.
Pearson's a fun fighter. No consistency in him.
No, not at all. But he's a fun fighter to watch.
And that's why he's been making it through all those cuts, as you mentioned before. Yeah. Patrick Cote as well, and Ben Saunders. Yeah. Tim Boach, who we last saw get floored by Dan Henderson, is on the prelims as well. And I gotta say, these Fight Pass early prelims, they're getting really good, man. Paul Felder and Darren Cruikshank. Paul Felder, the Irish Dragon. This guy, remember on UFC Chicago, he had a terrific fight with Edson Barbosa where they were just kicking each other in the ribs for 3 rounds, and it was amazing. Fight Pass, they're making it worth your money, folks.
Well, I think what they're doing, too, is they're kind of dividing the card up, and they're kind of making, I won't say 3 main events, but they're giving you a main event at each level. And I think that's something that I don't know if they're doing by design or if it just happens that way. It seems like each time, like as they're getting ready, especially for like the pay-per-views, you have your Fight Pass. The last card on a Fight Pass kind of is like a main event for that. And then all of a sudden they go to Fox Sports 1, and then you got your 2 or 3 fights, and then your main event for that, which takes you into your pay-per-view. And I like the way they do that. They kind of set it up into different cards, and it makes you want to watch each one. And it makes it almost like an individual standout.
Yeah, I can't wait. Alvarez Pettis, the people's main event, as Ariel Helwani coined that term. I mean, hell, dude, those guys are gonna go at it. And Showtime Pettis kind of the forgotten guy here because he should be the next one up at 155, and he gets cut off by Conor McGregor. So
this is called the People's Fight?
It's the term, as I understand it, the People's Main Event is the fight that is likely to be the most entertaining and the ones with the fighters that will really put their nose to the grindstone and make this a thrilling, like, there's no way this is a letdown of a fight, essentially.
So Shamrock Gracie probably won't get that.
No.
Okay.
That's reserved
just wondering.
That's reserved for Slice 5000. Is it Slice 5000? Is that the way they're billing that? Like, or is it Dada 5000? Is it just Dada? Is that what the first name we're going with? Like, I need to know I need to know the answers to this question.
I'll see if we can. I'll get those answers for you tomorrow. I'll try to get some answers for you.
I was gonna say, you're in beautiful Miami. We
had on another show. Yeah, on another show I did, we interviewed Dada 5000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talked about it. Talked to everything. That's when I found out that Billy Corbin was going to do the 2.
All right,
the second part.
Well, maybe upcoming we can see if.
And you know what the funny part about the second part is?
What?
He said it culminates with him beating Kimbo Slice in Houston.
Huh.
That's going to be the end of the movie.
So what happens if Kimbo? I mean, I don't even know what's going to happen. It's going to be 2 dudes like falling asleep. This heavyweight stuck after like a round, just like, dude, I can't do this anymore. It's all right. We'll just lean on.
I mean, they're going to have to go out there and throw fists because I don't know about that main event.
No.
I mean, it's going to come down to them. They're going to have to. I mean, not that it, but I mean, I don't know what they're doing with that card, man.
I really don't know. And the news about Horace Gracie, by the way, not the greatest.
No.
Pay your taxes.
Will he be there for the fight?
People, it's January. Tax season is coming up. Pay your taxes.
Yeah, may want to go and just double check and make sure that all the taxes are up to date.
Yeah, before you fight Ken Shamrock in a Bellator main event. That's pretty much all I got for our kind of, I guess, makeshift recording on a Thursday instead of a Wednesday as we normally do. Hopefully this puts it together and this sees the light of day. And if it does, we want to thank you guys for listening and sticking through with us despite the fact we got off the rails. But, you know, it makes for good radio. That's what we're about. You can follow us at BCoil11, at SS Sports Talk, at The Full Mount, of course, thefullmountmma.com. We'll have the odds for UFC Fight Night Boston up on Saturday, so you can get the latest odds before you decide to float some money one way or the other. We'll have Punchline recapping the greatest moments in this week in MMA because Conor McGregor wants to be on Irish Money. And that's a real story, folks, and it was talked about in a real government building, so stay tuned for that. And a couple other things that we'll talk about. And like I said, Sean, you'll have something on the Alvarez-Anthony Pettis fight that you can check out on the website sooner rather than later. You got anything else?
I do not. I just want to say thank you very much for being who you are, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks to the Full Mount for allowing us the TFM live podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, otherwise we'd just be talking to ourselves while watching NBA basketball or something like that and recording things that would never see the light of day, but glad we get to do this. It's fun. So we'll be back next week. Hopefully regular day, regular posting time again. Working on iTunes if you want to listen to us on iTunes. If you're saying, why don't these guys put it on iTunes so I can listen on my commute? We're working on it. iTunes likes to change around their user agreements and move all their files. So we'll work on that and take care of it for you. So thank you guys for listening. Remember The Full Mount on Twitter at The Full Mount. thefullmountmma.com, and we'll see you next week where we'll talk about and recap UFC Fight Night Boston. For Sean, I'm Brian.
The TFM Live Podcast is brought to you by thefullmountmma.com. Check us out on Twitter at The Full Mount.